There is an airport in Japan that has been sinking into the ocean for 30 straight years, and the same brutal mistake is being copied right now in the Philippines on a $23 billion project nobody can stop. There is another one in Nepal, where a single landing has killed over 50 people in a single crash, and pilots have to physically pray before every approach. There is one in Honduras, where the runway is so short and so dangerous that planes have crashed directly into the surrounding city, killing passengers and people on the ground who had nothing to do with aviation. Most people fly through these airports every single day with no idea that the engineering keeping them alive is one storm, one earthquake, or one wrong decision away from total collapse. Join us and let's discover the 13 most insane and deadly airports ever built. Stay until number 1, because what you'll learn about that airport will make you cancel your next flight. Let's go.
Number 13. Princess Juliana International Airport. On the tiny Caribbean island of St. Martin sits one of the most photographed and most dangerous airports in the world. The reason is the beach. Maho Beach sits directly at the edge of the runway, separated from arriving aircraft by nothing more than a thin chain-link fence and about 30 feet of sand. When jumbo jets like Boeing 747s come into land, they pass directly over the heads of tourists sunbathing on the sand. The aircraft descends so low that you can literally see the rivets on the bottom of the plane as it screams overhead. Tourists flock from around the world to experience the spectacle, lying on the beach watching massive aircraft thunder over them by mere meters. But the danger is real and has already killed. In 2017, a 57-year-old tourist from New Zealand named Helene Hadsell was thrown by jet blast from a departing aircraft. She slammed into a concrete barrier and died from her injuries. The intense thrust from jet engines essentially turns the beach behind the runway into a hurricane zone, hurling sand, debris, and human bodies through the air at brutal speeds. Multiple serious injuries occur every single year. Despite official warning signs covered in red letters, tourists ignore the danger and stand directly behind the engine wash to feel the experience. Local authorities have debated closing the beach access permanently, but tourism revenue keeps the deadly spectacle alive. Princess Juliana is dangerous because of jet blast, but the next airport is dangerous because of something far worse: mountain peaks that have ripped commercial aircraft out of the sky for decades.
Number 11. Tenzing Hillary Airport. High in the Himalayas, at the gateway to Mount Everest, sits the most dangerous commercial airport in the world. Tenzing Hillary Airport in Lukla, Nepal, is the entry point for trekkers attempting to climb the tallest mountain on Earth. To even reach Everest Base Camp, climbers must first survive landing here, and not everyone does. The runway is just 1,729 feet long, ending directly at a vertical mountain wall. There is no go-around procedure. Once a pilot commits to landing, there is no aborting. Hit the runway perfectly or smash into the cliff. The airport sits at 9,334 feet of elevation, where the thin air makes engines weaker and aircraft harder to control. The runway also has a brutal 12% gradient, sloping uphill to help slow incoming aircraft and accelerate departing ones. There is no instrument approach, no navigation aids, only visual flying through one of the most unpredictable weather systems on Earth. The death toll is staggering. In October 2008, Yeti Airlines Flight 103 crashed on approach, killing 18 of the 19 people on board. Crashes have happened repeatedly across the decades, claiming over 50 lives in documented commercial accidents. Pilots flying here must accumulate over 100 hours of mountain flying experience and complete at least 10 successful takeoffs and landings under supervision. Despite all of this, every climbing season tourists line up to fly here, betting their lives on weather, pilots, and an impossibly short runway. But the next airport is even worse, because the deaths are not limited to passengers.
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this.
Number 10. Toncontín International Airport. In the capital of Honduras sits an airport so dangerous that pilots from around the world have officially refused to fly there. Toncontín International Airport in Tegucigalpa has earned multiple international awards for being among the most dangerous airports on Earth, and the death toll proves it. The runway is just 7,094 feet long and sits in a deep valley surrounded by mountains on all sides.
To land, pilots must perform a sharp 45-degree banking turn at the very last moment, dropping suddenly between mountain peaks and aligning with the runway in a maneuver that requires absolute precision. One mistake and the aircraft slams into the city. In May 2008, Taka Flight 390, an Airbus A320, overshot the runway during landing. The aircraft crashed through a perimeter wall, slammed into a busy street, and killed 5 people, including innocent civilians on the ground who were simply driving home from work. The disaster forced the Honduran government to temporarily ban larger aircraft from operating there. Multiple smaller crashes have occurred across the decades, each adding to the brutal death count. Despite repeated demands from international aviation safety organizations to close the airport, it continues to operate because it is the only major air gateway to the Honduran capital. Pilots who fly to Toncontín receive special hazard pay and additional certifications. The runway has been shortened by official decree to reduce risk, but the geography remains the same killer it has always been. The next airport on our list has a different problem. Its deadly secret is hidden under the runway itself.
Number 9. Wellington International Airport. In the capital of New Zealand sits an airport with a runway that should not exist. Wellington International Airport has a single 6,351-foot runway, and both ends drop directly into the ocean. There is no margin, there is no overrun zone. If a pilot misjudges the landing speed or comes in too long, the aircraft goes directly into the cold waters of Cook Strait. The geography is brutal. The airport is squeezed between Wellington Harbor on the north end and Lyell Bay on the south end. There is literally nowhere to expand. Wellington is also one of the windiest cities on Earth, hammered constantly by violent crosswinds funneled through Cook Strait. Aircraft regularly land while being shoved sideways by gusts exceeding 70 kilometers per hour. Videos of jets touching down at extreme angles, almost sideways to the runway, regularly go viral on social media. Pilots flying here must be specially certified for the brutal crosswind conditions. In 1968, Air New Zealand Flight 379 crashed while attempting to land in severe winds, killing 2 crew members. Wellington flights are routinely diverted, delayed, or canceled when conditions become too dangerous. Despite this, the airport handles over 6 million passengers per year, all of them flying into and out of a runway that ends in the ocean on both sides. But the next airport has a problem that goes deeper, literally deeper. The runway sits on top of something that could swallow it whole.
In the Colorado Rockies sits the highest commercial airport in the entire United States, and the brutal altitude has been killing people for decades. Telluride Regional Airport sits at 9,070 feet above sea level, surrounded by mountain peaks rising to over 14,000 feet. The runway itself is built on a mesa, a flat-topped mountain plateau, with sheer cliffs dropping more than 1,000 feet on both ends. If you overshoot the runway, your aircraft simply falls off the edge of the world. The thin mountain air creates brutal challenges. Aircraft engines produce less thrust at this altitude. Wings generate less lift. Pilots have to maintain unnaturally high speeds during takeoff and landing just to keep the plane in the air. Weather changes within minutes, with sudden snowstorms and violent winds developing without warning. The airport has been the site of multiple fatal crashes across the decades. In 2004, a private jet crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 6 people on board. The investigation determined the pilots had underestimated the brutal effects of altitude on aircraft performance. Despite the deadly record, Telluride continues to serve wealthy tourists flying private jets to the luxury ski resort below. Only specially certified pilots are allowed to operate here, and even they regularly divert to Montrose Airport when conditions deteriorate. The airport closes completely during severe storms because no rescue is possible if something goes wrong. But the next airport is even more impossible because it was literally built on top of the ocean. Quick question for you. Pause here for a second and tell me in the comments, which of these deadly airports would you actually have the courage to land at? Type the number, we read every single one. Now back to the countdown, because the next 7 airports get truly insane.
Number 7. Madeira International Airport. On the volcanic Portuguese island of Madeira floats one of the most engineering-defying airports ever constructed. The original runway was just 5,250 feet long, far too short for modern jet aircraft. The problem was geography. The island is surrounded by ocean on one side and steep mountains on the other. There was literally no flat land to expand the runway. So Portuguese engineers did something insane. They extended the runway out over the ocean. But they did not use traditional reclamation or fill. They built the runway extension on 180 massive concrete pillars, each 230 feet tall, standing in the Atlantic Ocean. The result looks like a massive table sitting on top of the sea. Aircraft now land on a runway that is essentially a giant bridge suspended above the waves. The structure earned the prestigious Outstanding Structure Award from the International Association for Bridge in Structural Engineering. But the location creates brutal challenges. Powerful Atlantic winds slam into the runway from unpredictable directions. The wind shear is so severe that Madeira is officially classified as a Category C airport, meaning only specially trained pilots are allowed to operate there. In 1977, before the runway extension, TAP Portugal Flight 425 crashed while attempting to land in heavy rain, killing 131 of the 164 people on board. The disaster directly inspired the engineering madness of building the runway out over the ocean. The next airport on our list took the concept of impossible construction even further, removing an entire mountain just to build a runway.
Number 6. Daochang Yading Airport. In the western mountains of Sichuan, China, there is an airport that holds an absurd record. Daochang Yading is the highest civilian airport on the planet, sitting at a brutal 14,472 feet above sea level. To put that in context, the summit of the famous Matterhorn in the Swiss Alps reaches 14,692 feet. The Daochang Airport sits almost as high as the top of one of the most iconic mountain peaks in Europe. Challenges of operating at this altitude are extreme. The air is so thin that aircraft engines produce significantly less thrust. Wings generate less lift. Pilots have to maintain higher speeds during takeoff and landing just to keep the plane stable. The runway itself had to be built 13,123 feet long, longer than most international airports, just to give aircraft enough distance to safely accelerate and decelerate in the thin atmosphere. Passengers arriving here face immediate altitude sickness. The airport keeps medical oxygen ready at all times because tourists frequently collapse within minutes of stepping out of the plane. The construction process itself was brutal. Engineers had to flatten an entire mountain plateau, moving millions of cubic meters of earth and rock to create enough flat land for the runway and terminal. Workers labored in oxygen-thin conditions where physical exertion was dangerous. Daochang Yading was opened in 2013 to boost tourism to the remote Tibetan Plateau region. But the next airport changed the rules of construction completely.
Number 5. Hong Kong International Airport. In 1998, the city of Hong Kong opened an airport that essentially redefined what humans could build. Hong Kong International Airport, also known as Chek Lop Kok, was constructed on a completely artificial island, created by flattening 2 existing islands and reclaiming over 3,000 acres of land from the sea. The construction was one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in human history at the time, costing roughly $20 billion. Engineers literally removed entire mountain peaks, ground them into rubble, and dumped them into the South China Sea to create new land. The scale was staggering. Workers moved enough material to fill the entire channel tunnel between England and France 4 times over. The new island measures about 4.6 square miles and rises just a few meters above sea level. Hong Kong International was designed to handle 87 million passengers annually. It features one of the largest single-passenger terminal buildings in the world. The terminal stretches for over 1.27 kilometers from end to end, longer than 12 football fields placed in a straight line. The construction killed at least 7 workers, though local labor advocates have claimed the real death toll was significantly higher and was suppressed for political reasons. The same engineering principles used at Hong Kong are now being copied by every major airport project across Asia, including the new Manila airport currently rising from the sea. And one of those copies is failing right now in a way nobody predicted.
Number 4. Beijing Daxing International Airport. In 2019, China opened an airport that looked like it came from another planet. Beijing Daxing International Airport was designed by the legendary architect Zaha Hadid, and the terminal is shaped like a giant golden starfish, stretching across nearly 700,000 square meters. It is currently the largest single terminal airport building in the world. Standing inside it feels like walking through an alien spacecraft. The terminal has 6 irrigating arms that allow passengers to walk from the central hub to any gate in under 8 minutes, despite the absolutely massive size. The design is so efficient that the longest possible walking distance between any 2 points in the entire airport is shorter than what passengers walk in some smaller airports. The construction cost roughly $11 billion and took just over 4 years to complete. At full capacity, it can handle 100 million passengers per year. But the engineering achievements go deeper than aesthetics. The entire building sits on a complex system of seismic isolation bearings that allow it to flex and absorb earthquake energy. The roof contains 8,000 skylights that flood the interior with natural light. The terminal can also handle the largest aircraft ever built, including the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo. Sadly, Zaha Hadid herself died in 2016 before her masterpiece was completed. Beijing Doxing stands as her final and most ambitious creation. But across the South China Sea, another country was preparing to make an even bigger ed, with even more dangerous stakes.
Number 3. Istanbul Airport. In 2018, Turkey unveiled what is currently the largest airport in the world by total area. Istanbul Airport covers 76 square kilometers, which is roughly 5 times the size of Monaco. The scale is so absurd that the airport has its own internal transportation system just to move staff between different sections. When fully expanded by 2028, the airport will handle 200 million passengers annually, making it the busiest aviation hub on planet Earth. The construction was brutal in both engineering and human costs. Over 35,000 workers labored on the site simultaneously at peak construction. According to Turkish labor unions, at least 52 construction workers died during the build due to accidents, exhaustion, and safety violations. Some independent investigations claim the real death toll could be over 400, but the Turkish government has never released official numbers. Workers who tried to organize protests for better safety conditions were arrested and detained. Several were imprisoned for months. Despite the human cost, construction pushed forward under intense government pressure to finish on a politically motivated deadline. The terminal building itself covers 1.4 million square meters, larger than the entire Principality of Vatican City. The airport features 6 parallel runways at full capacity. The total project cost over $12 billion. Istanbul was built on solid ground, not reclaimed land. That single decision may save it from the disaster currently unfolding in the Philippines, where $23 billion is being gambled on a much more dangerous foundation.
Number 2. New Manila International Airport. Just north of Manila in the Philippines, one of the most ambitious airport projects in the history of Southeast Asia is rising from the ocean right now. The new Manila International Airport, located in Bulacan, has a price tag of 1.3 trillion pesos, roughly $23 billion. The scale is staggering. The site covers 2,500 hectares, equivalent to combining the cities of Mandaluyong and San Juan into a single mega facility. The airport is just the beginning. It sits at the center of a planned 12,000-hectare aerotropolis, an entire city built around the runways, with logistic zones, residential neighborhoods, business districts, and a seaport, all designed to function as one integrated economic machine. The engineering challenges are brutal. The site was reclaimed from the sea using enough sand to fill thousands of Olympic swimming pools. To stabilize the soft marine clay underneath, engineers drove 30,000 concrete piles into the ground, some reaching 75 meters deep, the height of a 25-story building buried beneath the airport. 4 parallel runways will operate from day one, with capacity to expand to 6. The terminal will cover 350,000 square meters, the size of 70 football fields. A 4.5-kilometer seawall protects the entire perimeter from typhoons. Local fishing communities in Bulacan have already lost their livelihoods as dredging operations destroyed marine ecosystems. But the dark secret is even bigger. The exact same engineering being used here has already failed catastrophically in another country, and Manila is repeating the disaster step by step.
Number 1. Kansai International Airport. In 1994, Japan opened what was supposed to be the most advanced airport on the planet. Kansai International Airport was built on a massive artificial island in Osaka Bay, the same exact engineering principle now being used in Manila. The Japanese government spent over $20 billion on construction, building seawalls, terminals, and runways on top of reclaimed marine clay. From the day it opened, it started sinking. Engineers had predicted some sinking would occur. The clay foundation would compress over time. Estimates suggested maybe 6 meters of settlement spread across 50 years of operation. They were brutally wrong. By 2018, parts of the airport had sunk more than 11.5 meters below their original construction level. That is the height of a 4-story building. Gone, disappeared, swallowed by the ocean while the airport tried desperately to keep operating above the waves. The Japanese government has spent billions of additional dollars on emergency interventions. Massive jacking systems were installed to physically lift parts of the terminal as it sinks. Seawalls had to be raised significantly higher than original designs. Then, disaster struck. In September 2018, Typhoon Jebi slammed directly into Kansai. The reinforced seawalls were overtopped by waves. The airport flooded catastrophically. A 2,591-ton fuel tanker was thrown by the storm into the connecting bridge to the mainland, severing the only road link to the airport. Approximately 8,000 passengers were trapped inside the terminal for days. Internal flooding destroyed critical electronic infrastructure. The economic damage exceeded billions of dollars. And Japanese engineers admitted privately something terrifying. They no longer know how to stop the sinking. The marine clay continues to compress every single year, and no technology exists to reverse it. Now think about this. The exact same construction techniques are being used right now in Manila. The exact same marine clay foundation. The exact same coastal vulnerability to typhoons. The Philippines is essentially betting $23 billion that the laws of physics will somehow behave differently this time. But the ocean does not negotiate. The ocean always wins eventually. Now tell me in the comments, do you think Manila will repeat Kansai's disaster? Or can engineering save it this time? Hit that like button, subscribe for the next mega project investigation, and we will see you in the next story.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.